You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla, and in this episode we talk to the alternate universe versions of us, aka Kayla and Evan from Upper Structure. During this episode we talked about the starting phases of Upper Structure, how they've grown, and then took a deep dive into their 2018 ICCA set where they took home second place at finals a couple weeks ago.
They also recently released their debut album called Bridges, which is available now on all the things. She Used to Be Mine got placed on Boca with a shout out by Sarah Bareilles, so make sure to check that out, and you'll be seeing much more from them in the next year, I am sure of it. If you're a fan of what Upper Structure does, they have been doing a summer structure thing for the last year, and they're going to do it this summer as well, so look out for more information on that if you want to be part of the group. You don't have to be at Berkeley, you can be a community member. It's a fun thing. I don't have anything else. I hope you enjoy this episode with Evan and Kayla, with Evan and Kayla.
Yeah, exactly. Very patriotic. Cool. Okay. Hi, everybody. We are here with Kayla and Evan from Upper Structure, and this is the first episode we've done in person for a while now. So it's nice to have human people close to us. Hello.
Hi.
We're gonna just kind of start it off. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and where you're from and how you sort of ended up at Berkeley.
Cool. I'm Kayla Liquori. I'm from Orlando, Florida. And my cousin actually went to Berkeley. He graduated when I was a senior in high school. And so he's kind of the reason why I knew about Berkeley. And my mom had a strict rule of me not going to New York. So I was like, okay, then Berkeley's the way to go. So yeah, I just auditioned and then ended up here. And that's how I got here.
My name's Evan Lee. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and then I moved to Katy, Texas. I got to Berkeley just knowing a couple of people here and, just looking at the school. And my choir teacher was, like, pushing me so hard to come to Berkeley. Like, she was like, you're going to Berkeley. And, like, my mom was like, that tuition, though. And she was just like, no, he's going. So, like, I auditioned and I got in and, like, I didn't audition for any other school or apply to any other school. I was just like, Mom was like, you sure you don't want to apply somewhere else? I'm like, no, Berkeley. So that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. I feel like when you go to Berkeley or any music school for that matter, there has to be, not has to, but there's probably a moment before you get there where you're like, okay, like music is like the thing that I want to do. Did you guys have that moment at any point?
Yeah. I mean, I know when I got my acceptance letter into Berkeley, I started like crying because it was just such a validation that I could get somewhere on my talent and I can like do something with that.
Yeah.
And I don't have to like be an accountant or something. Like I can actually study what I want to do. So I think like when I first got in, it kind of hit me. And then also arriving here for like orientation week, it was like insane just being here. So
Yeah, I was a jock at first, so I did all the sports, and I was like, nah, music, that's a side thing. I'm just gonna go to school and play football my whole entire life. Clearly that didn't work out. Once you're 5'6", and they're like, try again next year. But no, like around my like sophomore year and junior year is like when I got really involved in like entertaining and like, performing a lot. So that was around the time where I was like, okay, music is something I really want to do for the rest of my life. And then teaching is something I want to do for the rest of my life as well.
So what did y'all come to Berkeley to study, and then how did you get pulled into a cappella stuff? Did you always know that that's something that you wanted?
I studied music education. Like I said, I've always wanted to teach, and I've always wanted to, I've always had inspirations, like my band teachers, my choir teachers, and they always pushed me to be a leader and be, a teacher, and that was always like the direction I wanted to go in. But once I got to Berkeley, I did not think a cappella was going to be something I was going to be doing. One of my friends was just like, hey, come audition for this group, and I was like, sure, cool. I'll just audition for things because I have nothing else to do this weekend. And then I go to the auditions and I'm like waiting up till like 12 o'clock in the morning and then get this email about callbacks. And I was like, cool. Like, do I go? Do I not go? And then, I've loved the decision that I made.
I originally came to Berkeley for songwriting, and that's what I'm studying. And my high school didn't have a very elaborate music program. We had like one concert choir, which was really fun. And my choir teacher, I like still keep in contact with her, and I like look up to her so much. She's a big part of why I'm in music right now. But I never got the chance to like sing pop music with like other people. And so I remember just like sitting in my room till like midnight, like stalking all the Berkeley a cappella groups and like looking at them on YouTube and stuff. And so once I got to Berkeley, I think I only originally was going to audition for Pitch Slapped. But then we were at the auditions fair, or the group clubs fair, whatever. And this girl, Madeline, who was in upper structure, she saw me signing the Pitch Slapped like form, and she was like, "Hey, if you're gonna audition for them, you gotta audition for us, right?" And I was like, "Oh God, I guess I have to." But then that changed my whole life. So yeah.
So that was early on of the upper structure life,
Yeah.
right? Are you privy to kind of the origin story of the group?
Yeah. So the group was just made one semester before I got there, and it was formed by Madeline and Justin, and they both wanted to be an a cappella, but they hadn't really gotten into the other groups at Berkeley, so they were like, why don't we just make our own? And so they like formed this group, and it was a struggle getting people to come to auditions. Like our VP, Sarah, she literally didn't go to auditions or the callback, but Madeline was like, "You're in. We need a VP, and you're in."
She told us. That's so great.
And so that's kind of like how it was formed. And in that first semester, they did Boss, which is crazy. If you shout out to the white fedora in their Boss set. And then once we got like, in the semester I was there, we started learning more music, and we're like, hey, it would be really cool if like we were competing more. And so we did ICCA that year for the first time and stuff. So yeah, I think the group's just been on a incline ever since it was created.
So one thing that I noticed is y'all do a lot of like festivals or showcases or just like things really happening like all over the country. You did Haunted Harmonies, you did Voice Jam, you did ICCA. What else have you done?
Betsy, we've been to So Jam.
So you've done a lot of different things. So has that like, do you guys talk about that a lot? Is that like a thing where you're like, we want to be like a competition group, or we want to be just like focused on solely on our music and performing for audience? Where is like the line for that?
I think we like the balance of both. We've definitely, like, when we first started, it was as a group, it was definitely geared towards just like singing and just having fun as a group.
Yeah.
But we like doing festivals. We like, meeting other groups, definitely from the different coasts. Like we went to the Betsy Acapella Festival. We went to, Laugh. So it was just like cool meeting these different groups and even getting a chance to perform and, with them and competing and everything. So we like, now it's just a big balance between, just being social with these other groups and also getting a chance to compete and perform and expand ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think also another thing is we feel like it's really important for group bonding and stuff that we travel at least once a year. 'Cause it's super fun to like get on an airplane or a bus and like get huddled up in 2 hotel rooms with 18 people, and it's a little stressful sometimes, but it's definitely fun. And so I think like as the board, we're very adamant that we want to travel somewhere at least once a year. And once we get to these festivals, it's so crazy like how much we're learning from different groups, from the instructors and stuff. So it's really important to us because I feel like every time we go, our group grows in some way. So
yeah, it's funny. I mean, we've talked to a few people that like joined groups that are kind of more recent, and it's interesting how groups that are more recent kind of have an eye more towards like festivals and all that stuff in a way that like groups that have been around for 20 years don't know what's going on at all. Is it tough to because it's not, a cappella group is not like an ensemble in the same way that stuff at Berkeley is it tough, especially with your army of people in the group now, to like have that amount of people show up to rehearsal for the amount that's necessary and traveling and everything?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but once we have like, we have a set goal, and once you get everybody in the group geared towards a certain goal, commitment level definitely raises up, and it's like, okay, cool, we know
Mm-hmm.
this is what we want, this is what we want to accomplish, this is what we want to sound like, this is what we want to, win, or in anything of that nature. So that's where that commitment level comes in, and you see that, you see that drive and that intensity in everybody's eyes and everybody's heart. So
And speaking of those goals and the sound and everything that you wanted, just being in the Boston area, we've kind of watched different evolutions of the group over the years.
It really changes every year.
yes.
So it feels very like it's an exponential growth, not to say, but it just like it gets better and better. For you as people that are in a leadership position in the group, what's kind of been the thought process in trying to, better yourself and really, to me, y'all have kind of come into your own voice as time goes on.
I think just having clear-cut goals at the beginning of the year is what has like changed our group, I guess. 'Cause in the beginning of the group, we were kind of like, oh, we want to like have a group of people that just sing together, and maybe we'll compete, maybe we won't, maybe we'll travel, maybe we won't. And so I think progressively each year, the people in leadership positions look at the past year and they're like, okay, how can we improve that? How can we bring this group to what we want it to be? So yeah, I think having goals and just like setting high goals is something that has helped us like be motivated to keep getting better.
And another thing we like really want to do is, I kind of marketed the name of like, we're a jack of all trades now. I think that's something that Upper Structure has really kind of grown into, and like you said, our own sound. We have soul singers, we have rock star singers, we have pop singers, we have rappers, we have all these different things that we expand out to. So I think for us, it's just like, how can we reach out more and expand our who we are even more, so where we cover all bases and we can't be like, oh, we're just this kind of group. We're a group that does everything,
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like when like watching your sets, it's very apparent that you're showcasing different people and different people from different backgrounds, and you really want to let each person like have their moment, whoever is a solo at a certain point in time. And something that we love about y'all is that whichever set we're watching of yours, it's very clear what the story is. And a lot of groups like have a story that they're going with for a particular set, but oftentimes it's not fully there, you can't fully see it. But with yours, I felt like it's very obvious what you're trying to say and the statement you're trying to say. Even with like your 2017 set, like there's a clear relationship and how that developed. And then the most recent set, obviously like social justice and all of that was a big deal. So what sort of conversations do y'all have about sets and stories and all of that?
Yeah.
Our 2017 set was definitely just kind of like these 3 songs that we kind of put together, and the story kind of formed in itself. But it's something, our stories are always about something that we truly like believe in, something that's always happening in the now. And what we want to do is send a message. We always want to be the best group. We always want to perform to the best of our abilities. But what helps us do that, what helps us be better on stage and perform at a higher level, is knowing that we have this message that we really want to send out to people. And, like I always say, we send out our message to people who don't really want to listen, and because we know there are going to be those who get it, who understand it. And there are going to be those who are like, I don't really get that, I don't really understand it. We're like, no, we want you to understand. And, that's something that we talk about at the beginning of the year. And then this year's set, definitely we picked these 3 songs and we're like, cool, like this is what we want it to be about. We have these 3 solid songs, and then we ended up adding a song. And then Kayla and I had this discussion about like our outfits and how we would correlate the outfits with the choreo, and so that way it even brought out the message even more. And like how it came about was just like a miracle kind of sort of, and it was such a great process.
And then also, as we were getting more into ICCA prep, we all like just sat down in a circle and we went song by song, and we each said like what we're thinking about in the song and how we're feeling it, and like kind of just like stories about how people have been wronged or how you've seen friends be wronged and stuff like that in terms of the social justice. And so I think like once you've heard like 17 of your best friends, like talking about like things that have been bad for them or like people mistreating them and stuff like that. It like really like makes you very emotional, and I think it really connected all of us to each song. It connected us to our set and to the meaning, and that made us able to portray it even better when we were on stage.
It's interesting to me just watching the set, especially with the decision to have the outfits and be delineated in that way. This year specifically, the group is very uniquely diverse in in everybody who's represented in kind of a classic Berkeley way to me. And so how did that kind of factor into the discussions that you were having? And can you we've obviously seen the set, but like for people that haven't seen it, your thoughts about because in the in quarters, I don't think that you'd had the outfit change yet, and like how that kind of specifically came about.
So when we got the group together and we had our solid 18 people, we just kind of like sat down and kind of like looked around, and like when we go to our board meetings, we're like, wow, we're so diverse. We have like people from all different kinds of backgrounds, and I think that definitely played a part in the decision for the kind of set that we were gonna have. So like each song was just like a representation of the phases of like how our world has been, the situations in which we're going in. So like freedom was like our chant, like this is what we want. This is what we want to happen. It's not happening. Let's make it happen. Muddy Waters was like, we call it our battle cry. It was like us going to battle and fighting this battle of I'm being judged, you're not listening, like this back and forth. And then Spirit Cold was just about like, okay, cool, we've got some people that want to listen, like, okay, now let's not fight about it, let's talk about it. I want you to hear me, I want you to feel me. And that's also something I always tell them is like, don't let them hear you, let them feel you. And then Believer was like, all right, cool, like for those who don't want to listen, you're motivating us even more to spread our message, to spread this love, to spread this unity. And so we had the idea for the outfits like in December, but we were just kind of like, okay, by the time we told them, they were all like, I can't find white stuff, like, oh, that's so hard, like it's
where am I gonna find a white dress?
It's not spring yet. So I'm like, oh gosh. So we're like, okay, just wear the all black for quarterfinals and find your stuff. Like if we let's hope we make it to semis.
Wood,
knock on wood, we make it to semis. If we make it to semis, then we'll integrate the black and white. And once we did it, I was like, wow, like all of this that I had like envisioned in my head was like coming to life, and it was such a clear message. And Kayla, I would tell Kayla to come out, like, watch this formation, watch.
And I'd like cry.
What? Oh my gosh! So it was it was so fun, like the whole entire process, and for them to kind of like see it, and because of course you're performing, you're like, I don't get why we're wearing this black and white. So we'd like record it, and they'd see, and they're like, oh, what? Like, I get it now. And it was just so fun, and the process was amazing, and everybody, was all in. So.
And then just to speak more on the outfits, just for anyone who hasn't seen our set, we have the people of color in our group wearing white, and then we have the non-people of color wearing black. And I remember we were talking about we wanted to have this black and white thing going on, but originally it was the people of color in black and then the non-people of color in white, because Evan doesn't think he looks good in white.
I don't.
But you still snuck in some black.
Yeah,
he still got black.
Yeah, it was mostly black, and I just threw on a white jacket. That was it.
But then we were talking about it, and I was like, well, it would be really cool just because in terms of the history of America and the world, it's always been the people of color in the shadow of non-people of color. So if we reverse that and we can make the people of color shine and be like the bright ones, and obviously all our soloists were in white too, and so I think just making it seem like the non-people of color were in the shadow supporting, being allies, and then the people of color being able to shine and like get their message across. I think that was like something that was really cool. And seeing the set and seeing how the colors played out, it was really beautiful.
Totally. So, if I could actually take a step back from what I was saying initially, were you choosing the songs that you chose just for the set, or was it like, you had your whatever pitch meeting and then they were like, maybe these are these are the ones that are coming up, and then within that, it's funny, we just did an episode with Waka about cultural appropriation and everything, and we're talking specifically about freedom, and that's kind of been a discussion that's been had, about what groups should do this, should groups do this, X, Y, Z, etc. And like, what was kind of your group's thought process on that, because that's a very charged song.
Yeah. I think over the summer we as the board, we were just like, okay, well, what is our set going to be about this year? And we just kind of had a general idea that we wanted to be social justice. We didn't have a very specific idea. And so that's when Evan brought Believer. And he was like, this is a great song. It could be a great closer. Has a great message, like talking about through all the pain I've like risen up and stuff. So we had Believer going into the year, but then we didn't know what other songs we were going to do. And so we just had like a Google Doc that we shared with everyone in the group, and everyone just I had a section for ballads, section for opener, and people would just throw out their song suggestions. And then the board had a meeting to go through all those songs.
A very long
A
meeting.
very long one, and go through all those songs. But I think with like Muddy Waters and Freedom, as soon as we heard those songs, we were just like, this is the one. And we were like, okay, well, now that we have Freedom and Muddy Waters, like we can easily just make that about racial injustice and make it a more like pointed message rather than the general social justice. So yeah, I know that once we heard those songs, we were like, that's gotta be it.
And in terms of freedom, like, our group is just so, like, I think that diversity is what plays to our, like, for us in terms of doing that song, because it's such a powerful song. And I think it plays to the diversity. It plays to the, everything that Upper Structure is right now as a group. That's what that song is for us. It's like, we are this one unit, no matter where we come from, no matter who we are. So I think it's definitely something that, it's something we talked about, because we were like, okay, we don't want to do something people are like, song, this is so great. Because I'm that way about Michael Jackson. Upper Structure probably will never do a Michael Jackson song as long as I'm in the group. But, once we delivered the song and said, like, okay, this is the message we want to portray, like, everybody in the group was like, I'm all in. And we used our diversity and collectively put it together and, like, put it in this song. And I think we, executed it very well.
You're talking about the Google Doc that you had and filling out those spots, for the ICCA set. It's classically, the high intensity thing and the ballad and then the closer. During the finals weekend, what we weren't there sadly, but I was following Rob Dietz's tweets about stuff, and he was talking about how y'all were one of the groups. He was talking about groups that either played the game really well or kind of subverted what it was. And it's interesting to me that you say that, because you have, on some degree, there's the formula that is the game, which you're playing. But then I think that you've also made a lot of conscious decisions to subvert those things. Can you kind of talk about anything that you specifically conceptualized for that?
This year, I think we did a great combination of both. And some may disagree, some may agree. But I think we definitely played the game the way we wanted to play it. And I think we did it in the sense of, cool, we're going to do it and we're going to be a great group. We're going to do all the things for them to be like, okay, they did this, they did this, they did this. But we're going to, like, challenge some people on, like, especially that subjective rank, We're going to make you think a little bit. We're going to make you feel like, oh, wow, they didn't do what everybody else is doing. They're not as... oh, we're here to just perform. We're just here to entertain. We're just here to get on stage and sing 3 songs and call it a day. No, our 12 minutes are going to mean something, and we're going to speak, and we're going to make people who may not, like the things that we're trying to say, we're going to make them feel something. We're going to make the people who are agreeing with us feel something. And I tell them all the time, I tell our group all the time, when you step on the stage, we're not performers like everybody else. We're entertainers. We're here with a message, on top of the fact that we're gonna go out and sing to the best of our ability. So, while some people say we didn't play the game, or some people say we just changed the game. Like I appreciate both comments because it's, it means that we're doing our job. We're not conforming to a system. We're rising above it, and we're doing our own thing.
So obviously staging and movement is a big part of performances in general. And I find it really interesting that you are the MD, but also main choreo human. And I think that's pretty rare. I don't know many groups that are like set up in that formula.
Yeah.
I know Harrison does that with Voice Box, and that's the only other scenario I can think of. But I think it's really unique that the person who's kind of molding the music is also molding the movement on stage. So when you first thought of this idea, did you have a certain concept visually that you wanted to execute, and how did that sort of change over time as you guys performed?
I had like like soon as we picked our songs, my head just started seeing different things, and of course we get the voice parts and everything like that. So to me, it's just like plugging in headphones and like what I see, in terms of like formations, or what I see in terms of the message I'm trying to portray within, the vision.
Yeah.
I just start like writing it down, and it was definitely a process, a kind of short process, because a lot of the time it was like I was on a plane ride back from Texas coming back to Boston after winter break, and I would just plug in and listen to Freedom and be like, okay, this is what I want, this is what I want, and we'd have rehearsal the next day, and we'd tweak some things and be like, okay, cool, and then as they're doing the choreo, they're like, oh, I get it, like this is what we're supposed to be representing. Or like any of our choreo was just kind of like, all right, cool. I just sit and I listen to it and be like, what do I see and what do I feel with the music, and how can I portray that visually?
Yeah.
So I think it's good, and I would advise a lot of music directors to kind of get involved with the choreo, because it's like you're in it musically. You're feeling this music. So what do you see whenever you're listening to your group or listening to the voice parts or whatever, and you can portray it a lot. Not easier, but you could portray it, with the music and the choreo, because they're both hand in hand, and it's like if you're able to do that, then you've got something special.
Sure. Was there any point where you like had an idea and it wasn't quite fitting the story that you wanted to execute, and you kind of had to backtrack or like get the group involved in a more greater degree?
Definitely. It was just like, sometimes you're like just, you don't know what to do, and you're just like, go to the semicircle. That's like the go-to thing, is like, go to the semicircle, and everybody's like, I don't get that. And so you have a lot of trial and error in making the choreo, but it's all about, you have the brain blocks, and sometimes it's like it comes from the group, and they're like, what if we do this? And I'm like, that's a great idea, So for me, it was just kind of like, okay, cool, let me get this general idea and like little specific things we could tweak here and there. It was either kind of like, okay, let's do this instead, or the group being like, what if we do this? So it was a great like team effort, and trying to get exactly what we wanted before, even before quarterfinals and going into semis.
Everything that you're saying is bringing me back to when we competed a while ago, or I guess we competed last year. But I think it's one thing to have an idea for a set, and it's another thing to execute it. I was just wondering if you guys could kind of talk to your leadership styles and how those have kind of with each other and then how those have kind of played out with the group. I know that I've seen you like kind of leading a rehearsal, and it's funny that you said that you wanted to be an athlete, because you can kind of see that in your leadership style. But like it's a long haul, especially when you're going from the winter break all the way to ICCA Finals. That's months long of the same music over and over. How did you keep the group motivated and in the set that you envisioned in y'all's head?
I think the biggest thing is that me and Evan are pretty much the same in terms of competitiveness. Like I was also like, I played soccer all throughout high school, so I think we both have this kind of coaching and pushing in mind that I think sometimes is a lot for the group that we're leading, which is like fair, because me and Evan are like, oh yeah, why don't we just sing for 3 hours straight and not have a water break? And then our secretary is like, hey, these are people and they need to go to the bathroom. We're like, oh shoot. So I think that's one thing that has helped us, is that we're both on the same page about pretty much most things, and that has been able to translate into how we lead rehearsals. And so when Evan's music directing, I think it's important for me as the president to like look at our group and like see if they're like paying attention. Are they like are they absorbing what he's saying and stuff? And not being afraid to be transparent with them and like sit down and be like, hey, we've been off our game and this is how we need to get back on it.
Yeah.
And I think also at the beginning of the ICCA season, we were very transparent with the group and we're like, look, if we want to make our goals happen, we're going to have to be together for a long time, for a lot of the time, and we're going to have to like stick through it because we're going to get tired, we're going to get sick, our voices are going to be tired, and we're just going to have to push through. And so I think with everyone kind of knowing what they're getting into really helped, because I know last year some of the group didn't really know what we were getting into, so like trying to perfect our like semi set was kind of a struggle in our 2017 group. So I think that's something me and Evan definitely wanted to change in 2018. So yeah.
Just one more musical question, just because I'm interested. The little Spirit Cold interlude right before that last song was not in your initial set, and then it came in, and I think that kind of speaks to a certain amount of self-awareness that the group has of, it feels to me like where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are and are able to kind of assess that over time. And for me personally, like when I saw that interlude, it like made the set in a way that like I'd liked it before, and then but it really like glued it together. When did that come into the picture, and how did the group kind of get on board for that?
Right after quarterfinals, we had been kind of like working up to quarterfinals, and we were just like, okay, cool, like we have this really strong set, but that's all it was a really strong set. And it was just like a lot of like belting and moments, and you're like, and like all we on stage are like, yeah, this is awesome, and then like our audience is like, cool, like you're yelling at me for like 10 minutes, and we're like, sorry. But we had to think and be like, okay, there are these powerful moments in the message that we're trying to send, but there are also these vulnerable moments that that we have as well. So we as the board, and we had some people on the outside like looking for songs, and then one of our arrangers, Elliot, he like messaged us and was like, do this song, and we're like, I was like, okay, let me listen to it, like I'm in class right now, let me go, and I like plug it in, I'm like crying my eyes out in my room, and I texted to Kayla, and she's like, yeah. So like we got that arrangement, and we like learned it, and the group was like, oh my gosh, like this is that moment that we needed in our set. And we tied it like all together, and like we ran the whole entire set. We're like, okay, cool, like now we feel like we have this full complete set, whereas we just had like 3 songs that went together. Now we have a full complete set.
So obviously, you guys did really well.
It was all right.
Thank you.
Runner-up at the finals. I feel like being at the finals and just getting there must have been insane. And I can imagine that the energy must have been super high, being in front of that massive audience and just being around such incredible groups. And so I'm just curious, like, where your headspace was at when y'all were there, and how you tried to like cope with it or not cope with it, or what the experience was like just in general.
Yeah. I think we were all just so incredibly pumped to be there, obviously, because it's finals. And the nice thing was that this was the first time anyone in the group had ever been to finals. Because
that's cool.
other people in our group have been like in past acapella groups, and they've been to semis before, stuff like that. But this was the first time that all of us were in it for the first time. So that was cool. So you could feel that kind of buzz of like, oh, we don't really know like what to expect and stuff like that. So that definitely played a part of it. And I think like right before we went on stage, we all like huddled up, and we were ready for Evan to give us an inspirational speech like he always does. But then he was just like, okay, I'm going to go in. And he like talked to everyone individually about something he like loved about them. And we were all like crying. We were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But I think that like definitely put us in a really good emotional headspace to like give it our all on stage. Because we literally like, we went from crying in a circle to like, okay, run backstage. We have to get our mics. And
so no football warm-ups?
No football
not this time.
We weren't doing, but yeah, I think that being connected so connected emotionally. Really made for, I think, like one of our most emotional performances on the stage to date. So
Agreed.
What was it like walking off the stage after you had just put your like heart and souls on the stage?
It was nuts. Just because we went third, so it was like it was early. It was definitely early in the show, but walking off the stage and like being able to see people's like reactions like in the audience. Of course it's dark, but you get little glimpses and little faces like jaw dropping, and you're giving your all, and you're looking around and you're seeing 17 other people who you've worked and bust your butt for 3 months, and then walking off the stage knowing you put your everything on the stage is like cool. Like we did it, and like it, like I always say, it's some people's first at ICCA Finals, it's somebody's last, and this is the audience's first time seeing our set. So I've definitely felt like we put our everything out on the stage. So it was great moment feeling that.
We were joking about this earlier, but you have your, I don't know what it is, the tagline, this is us.
This is us.
And it's like your group's very big, but it feels like, especially this year, that you've really like you were saying from what you were saying to your group before you went on stage, like you've really like honed in on everybody's individual strengths and have brought them out. I just keep thinking of things that I wanted to say earlier, but like with this set specifically too, I feel like it feels like the solos that you picked were like handpicked for those people. Did you know who was gonna do what? Did because with Brandon it's like who else could it possibly be? And then with Bryce, it's like etc. Like when did that come into the picture?
So the way that we usually pick songs is you pick a song with a soloist in mind. But it's never like you pick a song for that soloist. So we pick songs and we're like, okay, these are the people that I think could rue the day on these songs. And which they did, the soloists that were there. And we have the auditions, which again, you never know who's gonna come in and rue the day. It may be the person that you suggested, it may be somebody totally different. But once we get into those auditions and we're like, okay, this person is really portraying what we envisioned for this song, then that's basically it. But for me personally, the 3 solos in which we had, I was like, these are the people that I have in mind for this one. But I always say I walk into an audition like I've never met these people before, and they're just walking in. This is my first time hearing them sing. I don't ever go like, but I know they can hit that note. Like today just was a bad day. If you can't hit it that day, you can't hit it that day, and that's all I know. So those 3, walked in and slayed those solos, and you were just kind of like, there were a lot of great people who auditioned for them, but those were like the ones we were like, oh, that's it. Yeah.
Well, it's clear that y'all have a very strong team of like rock stars, from Sarah, who has won how many times vocal version? Like
five straight times.
Every time you've done ICCA,
yeah, it's fine.
which is nuts. And like just incredible singers, Samuel winning last year, and someone else won this year. Brandon did at your semifinals. Yeah. So like clearly like y'all are rock stars, and like you're picking the right people to execute the certain ideas that you want. So that's really awesome. I think we're about wrapping up on this ep. So we like to close off on 2 particular questions. So the first is what trends you see in acapella that you like, and the second is what are you currently working on and what's next for y'all?
I think trends that I'm seeing in acapella is people are kind of drifting away from this like kitschiness and more into this like intense, like, I don't know, that music can be emotional and you can portray an emotion with a song. Like being at Best of the Northeast region last Tuesday, we saw Birdland and we saw Nor'easters and Pitch Slapped. Like each group I felt an emotion with the songs that they were singing, which I think like you think of like the Pitch Perfect days. It was kind of just like, oh, acapella's fun and it's cool that they make noise with their mouths. But I think now it's really coming into its own as a genre, and people are like, hey, this is actual music. So I think that's something that I'm seeing that I'm liking.
Yeah, and I like the fact that the community is constantly growing. The more I like look up, it's like, friends that I have had in high school that were just like, oh, we'll do choir and we'll be done with it. It's like messaging me like, you're with the Nor'easters and like you were pitch slapped and you're in upper structures, like yes, and it's like, oh my gosh, I like love this and I love that, and it's like, wow, like, you know, it's definitely growing as a community. It's growing and it's becoming more popular, and for me, you know, being in a group and me being a part of this journey and a part of this community, it's something definitely exciting to see, like everybody being like, oh my gosh, like we noticed that it's happening and it's growing, so that's really fun.
Yeah, and then what's next on deck for the group?
To be determined. To be determined. Everybody wants to compete next year, and I'm like, no.
And I'm like, yes.
So we'll see. To be determined. But we're definitely working on some more projects. We got some more songs coming in, and you're going to be seeing a lot of Upper Structure next year, so
Yes.
get ready.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and talking to us. We haven't acknowledged in the actual episode, but Kayla and Evan, there it
Love
is
it.
for you. I know you were
The
thinking it
name
as you were
twins.
listening.
Yes, indeed.
But thanks for coming, and we hope that you join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice. Can I draw that?